A nation of children getting suspended for suckets. Mrs. Johnson says WWF Monday Night Raw is a bad example.
He made reference to his genitals. It was not okay. Yeah.
This last week on Monday Night Raw, the phrase "suck it" was repeated 32 times. And Vince is like, it's perception. It's story. If you don't follow the stories, then I can't help you. You want to hold your thing. He slaps it out of his hand.
I was the way to slap the clipboard.
That was the attitude.
Oh, you think this is funny?
Oh, you have questions?
Ask the questions.
Have any questions?
Yeah. We watch every week.
Simply
no, you don't. You don't know that.
We are entertainment.
Oh, good. Okay.
This isn't real, remember?
Yes, I have women around in their underwear, but they will get their
Whoa,
comeuppance.
whoa,
The Vince McMahon character will get his comeuppance.
We haven't even started yet. This is wild.
We should,
Like,
anytime we say something.
This is all the pre-match stuff before the match starts.
Anytime we say something offensive, we should do it where like we bleep it out and then it has the green. You know, remember we used to show the green X? We should do that.
Yeah,
let's do
so
it.
good. All right, final count. 3, 2. What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just the Total Package, Craig the British Bulldog, and Cuz, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topics: Trendsetters-Sean Waltman. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast. Or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, can you give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019, or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. And don't forget, what's the new one, Jess?
Forget to go to Daily Motion.
Daily Motion.
Gotta
find that.
We're not censored.
Daily Motion.
We're not censored.
We are
uncensored. Daily Motion.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing like a 30 shimmy over here. What's going on? Yeah.
That should be the music video for the intro for Uncensored, like the DX Titantron, just us, black and white. That's NWO.
So Jess, what brought this on?
So it's NW.
You know, he is a trendsetter, and I've been wanting to do an episode on Sean Waltman for a long time. And I think history is starting to talk about him more fondly, as it should, by the way. But he went through a lot of demons. He went through some periods in his life where he wasn't in control, let's say, and now he seems that he is on the straight and narrow, and he's been sober for a while, from what I understand. And for a long time, actually, not just like recently, but he's been on the straight and narrow for a while. He's been wrestling on indies. When we were at New Orleans, we saw him there, brought his little dog when he was at the WrestleCon.
Nice.
We saw him in New Orleans for WrestleMania 34, I think it was.
You know what broke my heart? That dog just passed.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He adopted a rescue from a blind pit bull.
Oh,
yeah. I've been watching that.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
I felt so sorry for him. Like that was his constant.
I did
companion.
too. I could tell. Yep.
So I'm glad, and I like this topic, trendsetters, and I'm very picky about this topic because I really want it to be a trendsetter. And I feel that Sean Waltman's kind of in the same vein as Brian Pillman, where they were smaller guys and they defied all the odds. We'll talk about how Sean Waltman was different. Pillman was sort of accepted as a lightweight or a cruiserweight, and then that kind of worked for him. And then he just was able to influence people with his style. But Sean Waltman came into the land of the giants right after Vince was I need to retool. The steroid trial was getting hot and everything, and then Sean Waltman gets this massive break that changed everything. That changed his character, that changed his career, that changed the way we saw smaller guys. It's pretty fucking cool. And not to mention, I mean, he's a hell of a worker. Sean Waltman is such a good wrestler. It's ridiculous, and I don't think he gets talked about enough for influencing a lot of smaller guys and about the way they work. And he worked with so many big guys and made it look really good. Especially with the gimmick. You could look at the gimmick that he had in WWE as a hindrance, but it wasn't. He made it work, and then he grew out of it, and then became Six, and then became X-Pac, and we just knew him as a part of DX or NWO after that. We didn't look at him as a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight or anything like that. So he's a trendsetter if there ever has been one, and Sean Waltman deserves all the praise. And I hope that the newer wrestlers today watch his stuff and really watch the way he works with people, because he was something special. He really was. Really and is.
Well, let's jump right in, man. Sean Michael Waltman was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota on July 13th, 1972. after training under Boris Malenko, Joe Malenko, Masami
He was named
Soranaka,
after.
and-
Sorry to interrupt, Dave. He was
Yeah,
actually
good.
named after Shawn Michaels.
Oh, how about that? So he trained under Boris
No, it wasn't.
Malenko, Joe Malenko, Masami Soranaka. I don't know if that's true. I was
No,
just
it's
gonna
absolutely
Craig, you got us now.
Yeah,
don't
got
work on
him.
us. Yeah.
And Carl
I
Gotch.
actually stopped for
Waltman
a
began
second.
his career. Waltman being
Like, wait a minute.
Waltman
Shawn
began his
Michaels
career-
that
Nash
makes
Levesque
sense.
was born.
one fucking line in, we're already off the rails. One fucking line off the mountain log.
Sorry, Dave. You just got to plow through.
Already gone. I'm gonna plow through as always. Waltman began his career as the Lightning Kid in 1989. He worked his way, not Shawn Michaels, Shawn Waltman, through various independent promotions, including Pro Wrestling America, PWA, and the Global Wrestling Federation, winning the PWA Light Heavyweight title, the PWA Iron Horse TV title, and the GWF Light Heavyweight Championship. Yeah, there you go. During this time, Waltman worked extensively
Global,
with-
by the way, my massive satellite dish that I had growing up, I got Global. And I remember the Lightning Kid on Global. I remember numerous other stars too. The Handsome Stranger, and then also the Patriot was
talked about
there.
him
And
a
I
couple
really
weeks
liked
back,
Global Wrestling. But I remember the Lightning Kid. So when he showed up on, Dave will get to it, when he showed up on a bigger brand, I was like, I know that guy. And it was
Yeah, he looks familiar.
not living out in
Yeah.
Texas. I was lucky to see that. But yeah, he was already they already pretty much pigeonholed him as like a light heavyweight, and they were doing that with him on indies, and he was winning like all these light heavyweight championships like everywhere he went.
And you see him making his way towards the ring, coming out of the shadows and into the light. There he is, the Lightning Kid, at 6'2", 201 pounds, lithe and lanky from Florida.
Yeah, and the Lightning Kid, he recently defended that light heavyweight title in Japan for Universal Pro Wrestling, and he is a two-time GWF light heavyweight champion.
He was in a lot of the magazines too before he jumped. Like,
Yeah, he looked like
Yeah.
a child. I mean,
He
he
did.
legitimately looked like a
He
12
was.
Yes.
Like,
He's
yeah.
He worked extensively with Jerry Lynn in North America and Japan, but then Waltman began his career in the
Another great
WWF in
wrestler.
1993,
all the
where
great
he
wrestlers.
performed under several monikers as a
Oh,
jobber
that's wrestling.
until he was branded as the 1-2-3 Kid after an upset victory over Razor Ramon on Raw in early 1993. Everybody remembers that moment with that moonsault where he caught him,
yeah.
pinned him quick, and ran. He
Oh,
ran.
yeah.
out of the
So
arena.
think about this, right? Let's say the Kid came along 3 years before, and so he debuts on the main roster in 1990. I don't
There's
know
no
if,
way.
if like Vince was ready for that, because in 1993 so much had changed. Like the Hogan era was done. Hogan left for a while, and he tried to come back in 93 and it failed. But like Vince at the end of 92 was like, okay, I got to go with Shawn, I got to go with Brett. And he would end up getting big guys like Scott Hall came in as Razor, Yokozuna, but he had to get guys that did not look like they were on the juice. So he was distancing himself from all these people. 93 was the perfect time for Waltman to come along and then give him this gimmick. And let's listen, Scott Hall was a shit disturber in the back when he really wanted to be, right? And we all know that Scott Hall had his demons, but Scott Hall was so smart when it came to professional wrestling, and he was never ashamed to job. He would job to anybody. And the fact that, this happened for him, and that all could have been like, no, man, I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah,
he liked the
exactly.
kid.
I
He
think a
knew his
lot of
work, and
other
he's like,
big
fuck
names
yeah.
wouldn't have done it. And Scott's like, no, I like the kid. I think he's got talent. They were friends, right? I mean, at least they became friends. We know that, but I think they already
Yeah.
kind of had a relationship. He's like, I'll job for this guy and put him over, see what happens. He's talented, but a lot of people in the Scott Hall kind of era at that time their ego would have been too big to actually do that. So like a lot of things had to fall into place. Like I said, the Surrey trial, Razor saying, hey, let's see what happens.
Razor missing. Boy, he really came in with that elbow. And I think Razor's dazed. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3. What is this? He got him. He got him. Can't believe he beat Razor Ramon. Look at he beat Razor Ramon. He beat Razor Ramon. Razor Ramon got beat. He got beat. He recorded it. He beat Razor Ramon.
And I think that's, like I said, there was
And it was
little bit
different,
of a, little bit of a crease, a little bit of a crevice, a little bit of a crack for Waltman to come in, and he broke through that. And it was he took advantage of the situation of the
And
opportunity.
Vince was there was a good gimmick here too, because Vince was all about characters. Like WCW always did divisions better. Vince never did good with the light heavyweight division or a women's division.
Sure.
But eventually now, of course, things are way different now. But I mean, back then in like the late 80s, early 90s, WCW was always better with like the light heavyweight division and stuff. So they did that well. Vince did Waltman a different way. He's a small guy. Waltman, by the way, is not short. He's like 6'1". He's just as tall as Brett and Sean. But he was skinny. He was legitimately us. Like
he's
he was
wiry.
Like 180 pounds. Like he was, and he looked like a child. And Vince was like, okay, storyline wise, which is where Vince excelled, we're not going to make a lightweight division for this guy. We're just going to push him as like a small underachiever, like this small dark horse, this
underdog,
small, like
day.
yeah.
David
so
and
Vince put a
Goliath,
character. Yeah. So in a weird way, if he would have stayed in WCW or went to WCW on a full-time basis, he would have been a light heavyweight guy or a cruiserweight guy. Not saying he wouldn't have like tore the house down with Pillman and Liger, but like Vince had a story for him. Vince made you believe in this character.
Who knows?
And then ever since then,
he was.
And by the way, yeah, he gets a win against Ramon, but he could lose 100 times, kid. 1, 2, 3, kid. It didn't matter because you loved him. You were like, it doesn't matter. He's smaller than them, and he'll get him. Like so. It was really perfect when I look back on that gimmick. I'm like, that was freaking foolproof. Like he could lose a billion times, or he could win, and when he won, everybody celebrated. When he lost, well, he's smaller, but he'll come back tomorrow. He'll be better. Like it's like perfect character.
It's good.
And what a perfect promotion to fan those flames too.
By the way, as the 1, 2, 3 kid, he held the WWF Tag Team Championships twice and challenged Bret Hart for the WWF Championship in July of '94 on what was ranked by WWE as the 3rd best match ever on Raw. But of course, I mean I don't think people understand.
Not
1, 2, 3 kid, Xbox, whatever, Sean, whatever you call him, the guy can work. I think when you watch the match against Razor, you don't realize how good he is. He just catches him with a moonsault, and it's supposed to be this big fluke, and he runs out. But when you give him a chance to work, he can definitely do that. I think you're like just saying, like Vince had a storyline for him, but when you actually give him the moment, it's kind of like Undertaker, but opposite. Undertaker's like, I can work, but I'm not supposed to because I'm huge. Shawn Waltman was like, I'm supposed to get my ass kicked 100 times, so I can't work. But if you give me that opportunity, I'm going to put on a great match, and he did that with Bret Hart for sure.
Oh yeah,
so.
He was like
I wanted him to win when I was a
Mikey
kid when I watched
Wimprek was
this
kind
match.
of pushed in that same vein in ECW.
Yeah.
But no offense to
Sure.
Mikey Wimprek. Mikey Wimprek was funny, but he couldn't work like the kid could. So when you get the kid in there and you actually and it is, I agree, it's definitely in the top 5, top 10 Raw matches ever. Bret versus 1, 2, 3 kid. It's fantastic. It really is. And it's just again, you put him up there and then he could actually work with, and especially Bret's like, fuck yeah, let's work, man. Like I don't want to fucking do a big guy versus small guy storyline. Let's work. And they just worked with each other and it was great.
2, 3 kid on top. Bret Hart step back. He blocked the drop kick. He's going to the sharpshooter. He's going to the sharpshooter. He's got it. He's got the sharpshooter.
There's no way he get the rope.
And the referee's calling for the bell.
The winner of this bout, and still World Wrestling Federation champion, Bret
One of the greatest matches I have ever seen in my entire career.
So yeah, there's so many different things because Waltman is so talented. There's so many things they could do with him.
You know what I forgot too? His very first photo shoot as 1, 2, 3 kid, Lightning Kid or whatever, the WWF, I think didn't Perfect shave his eyebrows the day before that he was going into his photo shoot. So his action figure and most of the photography of him in the early days
Has no
is him
eyebrows?
without
No
eyebrows. Like what a dick.
So funny that Mr. Perfect did
What a dick. Because he looked weird with no eyebrows, and that's the day they got all his photography and did his photo shoot. Messed up.
Miss Perfect's awesome.
I don't think Henry regrets that at all. I'm just saying, like, up there, the big ring in the sky. He's like, that was funny shit. I don't care what he says. Imagine, and also, I just
Sean
like,
thinks about it too all the time.
imagine him working a match in the sweat, just like because the sweat coming down. That's what your eyebrows are for. Like if they're to block that out and run it across. Is to keep sweat out of your eyes. The whole, there's no other
take forever to
purpose.
grow back. I'm
like,
surprised they did grow back.
Eyes.
During the Monday Night Wars, Waltman left the WWE in 1996 to join Clique members Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, formerly known as Razor Ramon, as 6 in WCW, and held the WCW World Tag Team Championship with them as part of the New World Order, NWO, as well as becoming a one-time WCW Cruiserweight champion.
Oh, brother.
Getting the accolades, man, in WCW. and he was working. Like I feel like Six is doing. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but Six was doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this time frame because I could see Hogan going, "That doesn't work for me, brother. I don't need to go out tonight, brother. I'm a little too hungover, brother. Can Waltman do it? Like that's what I like." And he was down for whatever, right? And I'm not saying he was carrying people's bags.
He had a lot of good matches that people forget about with Malenko and Mysterio during this time period too, and Jericho.
So I'm saying he's just working, man. The guy's just working when everybody else doesn't want to. They're getting paid, and they're only. I'm just gonna be here for the promo and then for the pay per view. And he's like, "No, I'll work."
We will see. Come from behind, got him hooked up.
Got the buzz killer on. That's his submission hold.
Could be an uncling going on right here on Saturday night.
How about that combination chicken wing and a crossface?
Wow.
And
That's
also
it.
pulling back, and it's over.
He's tapping out. That's it.
He tapped out.
Dave is
exactly
giving
right.
up.
The man with 3 taps tapped out, but now he had tapped out, and still Six has the buzz killer on.
Well, he better get it loose because damage could be done right here to Chris Jericho.
Oh boy, Jericho is in major pain.
Wow.
And
now he's got it around his throat down there.
Boy.
Trying to choke him out.
Thank goodness this one is over. Six is your winner.
After being released from WCW 1998, which is wild, he returned to this is pivotal, by the way. He returned to WWF during its Attitude Era, where he was rebranded as D-Generation X member X-Pac and held the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship and the WWF European Championship twice each, but also holding the WWF Tag Team Championships 2 more times while paired with Kane. Kane gets a lot of tag championships with different people. I'm just saying it's kind of wild. But
and
think
also
about that.
too, like Bischoff has admitted, he's like, like you can point to a lot of things with the tide turning and the Monday Night Wars, but he was like, honestly, he was like, my biggest whoopsie daisy was letting Sean Waltman walk onto Raw, and then because all up until then, it was everybody going to WCW in 96, 97, and it looked like WWF was the second-rate promotion. And then they started to get momentum with the Tyson storyline and Austin and all that. And then when Six walked back on there and was the first guy to go back from WCW, Bischoff's like, if I really thought about it, that really fucked us hard. And he was like, we were struck that in the fans' perception, WCW was losing a little bit of steam.
Yeah.
And they were looking old and stale. And then WWF was fresh and new. And now people are wanting to go back the other way. And then Jarrett, well, I think Jarrett came back before, but Jarrett never was really over in WCW as like that he wanted to be. But X-Pac was like the big difference maker. And then they featured him. So when he became X-Pac, it was like the rebranding of DX. Shawn Michaels was gone. Triple H was a leader now. And X-Pac comes over and it's just like, and he cut a promo on Bischoff.
And when you start an army, when you set out to do what no one else can do, the first thing you do is you look to your blood. You look to your buddies. You look to your friends. You look to the clique.
What?
Yeah!
Well, look who's back. What a coup has been pulled off here, JR. A new day is dawning for DX.
Yeah, he cut a promo on Bischoff, he cut a promo on Hogan, and Vince let him go. And so it was like he was running him down. It was the first guy to go back the other way and then bash WCW. And then people were like, "Oh shit!" Like,
wasn't it that separation with Sean, but had him and then the Road Dogs also being there because they were there for a little while, and then that DX was kind of like just reignited in a sense.
Yeah, they're rebuilding, and then that to me that's like the first big Raw after WrestleMania was like that kind of started it. Like X-Pac, because that was how Raw ended. Triple H came out there. You got to rebuild an army. When you rebuild an army, you look to your family. You look to your friends.
It's really good.
You look to your blood. You look to the clique. It's all
it wasn't that music. It was DX music, but
D-Generation.
So make some
I will say, like we're looking back fondly at Sean Waltman here, but as the average fans, and I think
don't do it.
And regular fans back then, this is why the term X-Pac heat was kind of invented. We kind of got tired of seeing him. And he wasn't fully respected in WCW either. It was always a bit of an afterthought. And And so he was always like, guy, like we always liked
Yeah,
him, but
that's
there was a
true. Yeah.
definite period of time where we
Underappreciated.
didn't get the respect, and he was always like, we did roll our eyes with X-Pac. He just didn't have that charisma or whatever. And we look back now and see how he was part of, both
Everything.
of the biggest critical dynasties and factions in wrestling
The
history.
sixth member of the NWO, dubbed
Mhm.
name 6,
Right,
and
he
then
was
he
six.
came back as X-Pac, baby.
But it was
Mhm.
back then. I remember we kind of gave him a hard time. I think I don't think we were true like X-Pac lovers.
And I think
at that point.
more the X-Pac like get off my TV heat came after that. I think it was like when he was doing X Factor and all that stuff. I think people were like, "Fucking X-Pac." Like every
Yeah.
time he'd come out, it, was just
It
sort of
always
like,
felt like that when he would come out.
Yeah.
The guys everywhere.
kind of like when
everything.
Tamina comes out nowadays, Like,
Oh my
sorry,
god.
sorry, but
The way who comes out?
But
Tamina.
Tamina. But I think that
Well,
was
no, for me, it's Natalia now. Every time
Or
Natalia comes out, I'm like, oh,
I
God.
hate to say the same thing. Yeah, it's because
Yeah.
they're not going to do anything. Like she's not going to win the title. It's
No.
why are we doing this again?
Yeah. After WCW
bring
went
out
out of
X-Pac.
business in 2001, X-Pac held the WCW Cruiserweight
Just
and
wrestling.
WWF Light Heavyweight Championships simultaneously during the invasion before departing the company after a brief NWO reunion the following year. He subsequently performed sporadically for several promotions, notably TNA, where he became a one-time TNA X Division champion,
Make
and-
some sounds.
and then the independent circuits until he announced his retirement in 2019. He did return to the ring in 2022. Additionally, he was a two-time WW Hall of Famer. He was the only inductee to be
What's
inducted.
Sorry, Dave. What is the story of how he tore his rectum? Where was he wrestling
He
when
did the
he?
Bronco Buster. I think it was
It was an independent show. He
Indie
did a Bronco
Yeah, it was
Buster.
an independent. I think wasn't it
Ripped his
PWG?
butthole.
Wasn't it?
It might have
PWG?
been, yeah. And he ripped his butthole.
And it went right
Or
into his
XPW.
rectum, right? Like the turnbuckle did.
yeah,
Pro
it
Wrestling
ripped
Gorilla?
it. Ripped it. So he actually ripped his
Yeah, he
butthole
ripped
open.
his-
Oh my god!
He's like, oh fuck!
Make some noise.
Makes
Not
no.
really. Not really talking about
I ripped my rectum. Doom, doom. He ripped his
I can't
rectum.
say that. It's
Doom,
like,
Not your
doom.
butthole.
Just went out a picture for that one.
Jesus.
oh shit! Yeah, Google a picture and just put the first one that comes up.
No, don't do that.
Have AI do
That's
it.
gonna be the thumbnail. Make it be the thumbnail. For
No,
the
thank
show.
you. No, thank you. Additionally, Sean, not his booty, is a two-time WWE Hall of Fame inductee. The only inductee to be inducted 2 years in a row
big bad
from
booty
2019 2020 as a member of DX and the NWO, respectively. He does deserve his own individual induction. I don't know if we'll see it, but that's just my thoughts. His style literally shaped an entire generation of pro wrestlers. His win over Ramon in '93 and the WWF getting behind him changed the way smaller wrestlers were perceived. He is one of the most precious few that began his career in the line of the Giants, but ended up inspiring an entire generation of too small performers. Arguably, he paved the way for WCW Cruiserweight division to be accepted by American wrestling fans in the mid-90s. If not for his personal demons, there's no telling how many times he would have won a world title. I don't know about that last statement. I might disagree a little bit, but I
think Mysterio and all them are a little bit more WCW cruiserweight.
Well,
logo, those guys.
I think demons might be one part of it, but I also think he was, like you said, trendsetter ahead of his time, where they couldn't see him holding that title.
Yeah.
I also think the mic work is a little to be desired there as well, but he has a hard time speaking in front of crowds, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because he's so good everywhere else, So notable matches, if you guys want to get into it. Mr. Bret Hart for the WWE World Title on Monday Night Raw on January 11th of '94 was pretty good. Versus Razor Ramon is very notable on '93. And then Bob Holly with Bob Holly versus Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka for the World Tag Team titles. Royal Rumble of '95. That's a barn burner. Go check it out. Marty Jannetty versus the Quebec.
And actually, real quick too, that set up the LT storyline. So Bigelow and Tatanka lost to Bob Holly and 1-2-3 Kid, and then that's when Bigelow rolls outside the ring and LT was kind of laughing at him, and then that's when he pushed LT, and they set up their WrestleMania thing. So kind of indirectly, the 1-2-3 Kid was sort of like involved in that like little angle.
This is fun. 1-2-3 Kid with Marty Jannetty versus the Quebecers for the tag team titles on Monday Night Raw.
It's such a good match.
On January '94. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to go back and try to find that one if we can.
They won the titles from Quebecers
if
too,
Peacock will let me find it, sorry.
Yeah.
Versus
What
Dean
season is it?
Malenko for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship on Super
gotta be
Brawl
season
7 in 1997, and then versus Billy Kidman for the unification of the WWF and WCW Cruiserweight titles. Monday Night Raw on January 30th of 2001. And by the way, I mean those are notables, but there's so much more work in there that we're leaving out. Guy was
for sure.
It's ahead of his time. You know, trendsetter is maybe an understatement for where Sean Waltman was and what we saw in the ring. He was bringing a martial arts style and definitely different. We did start to see some aerial.
Actually, I'm glad you touched on that. You're right.
Feet.
Like he was a lot more martial artsy, like from Japan. Like that's a good thing to touch on.
That's what
'cause
Jim
he
Ross
did
would always
get-
say. Those educated feet.
Nobody saw those. You didn't see that on U.S. soil until you saw Waltman bring it in. And his aerial style was completely different from what we started to see. Like back in those days, Owen Hart or Blue Blazer, you saw some aerial movement. You saw it with Coco Beware, but you didn't see it on these stages like Waltman can do it, and it was completely different. I would argue that if he caught you with one of those spinning heel kicks, it should have knocked you out, and that could have been a way he caught Razor. There's so many ways. The moonsault's a big, spectacular event, but if you get caught by the back of somebody's boot in a spinning heel kick, that'll knock. I don't care how big you are, that'll knock your ass out. And he had that available in his arsenal. The kind of things that he could do as a kid, because he's like the definition of babyface, the physical definition of babyface. He looked like a baby in there.
That's very true. Like I don't think it's an insult to say he kind of was a little goofy looking.
He was
he had a face like a long face.
Like he was so young, and and now you look at the picture that Jess puts down there. He doesn't look that way anymore. He looks like an adult. And he's totally different. But like I said, he totally paved the way for a different style, a different weight class, a different type of wrestler. That and to Justin's point, if not for the steroid era where want to get smaller, I joked that Razor Ramon stopped working out like in 1993 or so, and that's why he probably never got popped either for anything, because Razor was huge, but he started to shrink over time, if that makes any sense. So these guys are clean. So this kind of
he liked to party.
He liked to party, but this brings in all the opportunities, as small as they were, for somebody like Sean Waltman to break through that ceiling. It's pretty impressive, actually, when you look back on it. I forget, and he's all over our TV for like 20 years.
Yes, there's a ton of matches. I forgot about the Jeff Jarrett SummerSlam match where Jarrett got his hair cut.
Yeah,
that was against 123 Kid or X-Pac actually, and that was a great match. That was a really, really good match. His feud with Jarrett was really good.
That the hair cutting goes down or comes off, whatever you prefer.
Shane McMahon, right? What SummerSlam was that? Was that 99, cuz? Didn't he face Shane McMahon at SummerSlam?
Damn, was it 99 or 2000?
Well, maybe, okay.
2000 was Steve Blackman, I think. And
that's
Shane
right,
McMahon,
where he fell off the scaffold. So one of those years, X-Pac took on Shane McMahon. So he was featured. There was a lot of other matches that X-Pac was a part of, for sure.
Yeah, he's always been up there.
Yeah. And then him and Kane were tag team champions for a while. Like they were like kind of Hell No, like Team Hell No in a way. Like
basically.
Before there was Hell No,
yeah,
so awesome.
And I never heard any issues of other people in the locker room. Like people love him, and like to this day they stay close with Nash and Hall and everything. So he must have been a perfect workhorse in the ring and a perfect kind of part of the boys in the back. Like, do you ever heard of anyone having heat with X-Pac in the back?
No,
never.
Just the audience apparently with X-Pac heat on TV. That's the only
right. And we just because we're
ignorant wrestling fans, not knowing what's good for us,
to not appreciate him at the time and what he was doing.
Exactly. Yep.
Being the worker of both those.
You're definitely you're bucking the system at that time with somebody like Sean Waltman. You are pushing against the norm, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't. We're fighting about that today with AEW and other items about how they do their business. Some people love it. Some people are like, that's not the way, but we'll see how it turns out. I can argue that for a moment, Stone Cold Steve Austin was not the way, but Everybody loves Stone Cold Steve Austin. So
Oh, but I
I'm
became
not saying
the winner.
Shawn was like,
Yeah,
Shawn
I
Waltman didn't
became
come
the
to that
way.
level.
That's what started that
but your
faction
ass.
in NXT.
Yeah,
Johnny
there's a
Gargano,
lot of,
Austin
there's,
Theory, the way.
oh my God, that's the way. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
could Johnny Gargano be where he is without Shawn Waltman? I'd argue it'd be tough.
Nah,
He's
Nah,
a
yeah.
small guy.
And
you know? He's a
maybe
small
I'm
guy.
stretching on this, but because Paul Levesque was very close with Sean, I think that's when him and Sean see a lot of smaller
You
people.
look to your fit.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You look to your butt. You look to NXT. Yeah, so maybe that's what they always liked. I mean, Sean was always kind of on the smaller side anyway, but
Yeah.
I think that they really like Sean Waltman so much that maybe they see a lot of Sean Waltman in those. I'm stretching, but they were personal friends, so maybe they were like, no, like if Sean could do it, they could do it.
And he made standing next to him, he made Shawn Michaels look like Triple H, like a bigger guy than he was.
It's crazy because like I said, he's 6 foot. I'll have to look it up, or 6'1".
Yeah.
He's not a short guy. Sean
He was
Waltman.
just rail
so
thin.
skinny,
Like
yeah.
he'd never
so skinny.
Did he ever fill out muscle wise?
Not
I mean,
really.
he filled out more than Kid. But
when he
like,
was
the
X
one-
Factor, he was a
was
little
probably
bigger,
his-
but yeah.
I think he shred. I think he just went more shredded, but he didn't bulk up or anything. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
And I haven't heard his podcast. Does he still do it? And is it good?
I think so. I've only heard a couple clips. I think so. I don't know if he does or not.
Oh. I mean, I'd love to see him, and I think he seems so friendly and so affable. And then watching him with his dog and following his story,
Big
it
dog
seems
lover. Yep.
so humble to be anywhere when he's meeting with fans. So
Yeah.
to not be bitter and to be happy and grateful where he is, he just seems like he's very much at peace, and that's all you can hope for after the life he's probably lived. So
There you go.
Yep.
Well, shoot, let's wrap it up, man. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. And on social media, can you give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at OW2018, or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. And don't forget, Daily Motion.
it's motion every day.
Yeah, Daily Motion. Yeah,
The DX of our podcast.
where you can't be
Daily
censored
Motion.
to watch videos about.
Can't tell us what to
video
do. No more YouTube for you.
YouTube can't edit us down. Can't
Daily
copyright
Motion's
strike the
where it's at. Break it down.
It's so fun. All right, for the O.W.P,
It's like
this
so
is
fun. These assholes.
you know.
We have so much fun here.
I mean,
So many.
it's so much fun until me and Craig get in a fight. I lost.
Yeah.
Fight,
Just kidding.
In the gym.
fight.
Yeah. Craig's like, you want to start something? Won't be
You're such a
some.
bully, Craig, man. Why are you
Let's go.
bully?
That's not
Why
what
you
it
bullying?
I told him Cody's arms was broken for real, and he didn't agree.
And
with me.
I
Didn't believe
don't
you,
believe
so-
it. Didn't believe a word of it.
Like,
For
you
the
want me to
O.W.P, this is Cuz, Craig, Jess, and Dave signing off now. Have a good one.
Yeah.